All right. Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Tonight is Saturday, August 31st, 2019. And of course, we remain locked on Major Hurricane Dorian as it makes its approach to the Northwestern Bahamas and is then going to take aim towards the southeast U.S. coast, first up with Florida and then turning north from there over the next several days and into next week. So, again, guys, the latest on the storm this afternoon is that Dorian has not really intensified all that much, but we've had subtle changes in the track here this afternoon. We're still tracking a lot of real time things and we have some new watches and warnings to get to. So let's go ahead and get right to it. As far as the Hurricane Dorian's 5 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center, maximum sustained winds remain at 150 miles an hour, a very powerful Category 4 hurricane. It is moving generally to the west-northwest at about 8 miles an hour, and it will be impacting the Northwestern Bahamas, mainly Great Abaco and Grand Bahama, the two most northern islands here. Sometime by tomorrow afternoon, the worst of the storm will be moving onshore, but effects will start as early as tonight. The minor hurricane warnings, and I will tell you this storm will be catastrophic for these islands. Whether Dorian is exactly a Category 4, it could possibly be a Category 5 if it tightens up a little bit more. The hurricane hunters are flying the storm right now, and they haven't found the evidence of those winds yet, but they have not found evidence that it's weakened either. It is still a top end Category 4 hurricane. And since we've been able to reliably track these since about the 1850s or so, a storm like this has never hit these islands in the northern Bahamas. The only two that have ever hit the Bahamas as a 4 or a 5 are Hurricane Andrew in 1992 and Hurricane Irma in 2017. Or sorry, the only two hurricanes that have made landfall with maximum winds at or greater than 150 miles an hour are Irma and Andrew, and both those storms hit further south. So Andrew's path was more like this, and Irma's path was down here. So neither storm, none of these islands have ever been hit by something like this before. And the fact that Dorian is going to crawl through the islands over the course of an entire day or more, we could be talking about 24 to 30 hours of direct serious impacts, and Dorian will not weaken much because the water's still warm around these islands and there's not enough terrain to really impact them. So they could be in for an absolute hell on earth tomorrow afternoon. So hopefully preparations have been completed and people are ready there. Looking at otherwise, we do have some additional tropical storm watches here tonight. We do have a tropical storm watch up for parts of the eastern Florida coastline. This is from Deerfield Beach to Sebastian Inlet. Another way to look at it is this map here. Again, things like a little bit south of Melbourne or Palm Bay, all the way down through Port St. Lucie, West Palm Beach, and into Boca Raton. So you could be expecting tropical storm force winds sustained at 34 miles an hour or greater going into the next 48 hours or less. So that's when that is set, and these tropical storm watches and warnings will extend up the coast in the future. We don't have the exact timing on that yet, but I believe the Hurricane Center will be issuing some more probably by tomorrow morning, and then by tomorrow afternoon we could probably see those warnings as far north as southeast Georgia. But all of the Florida coastline, at least from this point north, will be under a tropical storm watch by tomorrow afternoon, and hurricane watches are very likely to potentially go up as well, depending on how close Dorian's westward or eastward the track gets in the short period of time. So that's kind of the latest right now as far as the big stuff. Looking at the satellite presentation here this afternoon, Dorian is still a very powerful storm, and as I said, it made a bit of a run at Category 5 earlier. We can see that in the last few frames here, there's going to be a ring of these black clouds are going to shoot around. These reds and dark reds are indicating of some of those coldest cloud tops, some of the tallest, strongest storms. That's where you mix down the strongest winds to the surface, and you do have this period right here with this ring shot around the storm, and it got about 3/4 of the way around, but then the back half of the wall fell off a little bit. It seems to be that there's just a slight irritation of northerly wind shear impacting Dorian in the upper levels, and it's just been enough. We still see the top of the storm is flat where the high pressure is steering it westward. The high pressure is still nosed in right here. You can see if I go ahead and reloop the storm here, the background clouds, if you just focus for a second on the clouds up here, you can see that they're moving in this general direction. This is what's steering Dorian off to the west right now. This high pressure nose will begin to break down, and we'll talk about that in a second. So right now, though, in the high levels, there's just a little bit of northerly wind shear, and that might be the only thing that is keeping Dorian a bit at bay, but we haven't we don't know for sure. The hurricane hunters flew it like this. Now they're going up and they're going to fly it like this or so. So we'll see if they find anything stronger. But right now the indication is about 130 knots or 150 miles an hour. So that's the latest on that as far as that concern goes. The track is still kind of evolving as we speak. Right now the hurricane hunters are also flying around the storm. This flight path looks funny, but that's because they're flying around it on purpose. They want to sample in real time the atmosphere around the storm. So they're going to probably fly back down here, hit a few high points and spots, and then go back. And this will give our computer models way better information. So this was taken at 21Z, so about 4 o'clock local. So some of our evening models can use this information in their forecasts. I think the GFS is the first one to get a hold of it because now the 18Z GFS has shifted back to the west just a little bit. So remember, we've been talking about this eastward shift throughout the day as more and more models at the 5 a.m. advisory and really overnight advisories like midnight, we started to see this gradual shift to the east, and everyone woke up today feeling much better in Florida because so many of these models had trended off to the east. That puts the worst of the storm, the right side of the storm, offshore, and it greatly reduced the impact that Florida was going to receive, going from sustaining a direct hit from a Category 4 or stronger hurricane and raking the coastline, moving northward like this, and instead now the storm is just going to kind of graze them, kind of like Matthew did 2 years ago, or really 3 years ago now. So that's kind of the idea right now of the track, but I've been cautioning all day that that track is not to be fallen in love with, and vast uncertainties remain. Even if Dorian tracks just a mile an hour or two slower, or the high pressure ridge noses in just a few more hours, and this track can shift back to the east or west pretty quick, and even a 20-30 mile jog, something like that, back to the east or west can be a big difference in what we feel and what we see. I mean, Matthew came within 20 miles of the coast or so, and it was a $3 billion storm in damage, and the eye never made landfall. So please don't fall in love with these forecasts or think that it's nothing to fear anymore, nothing to prepare for anymore. It does not take much of a westward shift to put a Category 4 hurricane that close to the coast. Would be a major impact to the Florida coastline, and you still have that easterly wind, which will still impact the beaches greatly. So it is not something to be trifled with. I'm going to show you why, too, that forecast is such a hard micromanage in a second. Talking about the track a little bit more here, what we're really tracking this evening, guys, as we go back to the now here, is this high pressure ridge to Dorian's north. So what this is a high pressure ridge anchored right here off the coast of the Outer Banks. And the nose right now, you can see the trace is something like this. And this is what is flowing Dorian off to the west, with that flow being in that clockwise motion. If I extend this model now, I go into, this is about 5 o'clock local. So if I go to midnight tonight, we can see that the new shape of the high pressure has already pulled away significantly. The edge of the high has migrated off to the west, and this is kind of leaving Dorian in a light steering flow. There's really nothing else to steer it. Our upper level low is backed away completely. This upper level low is way too far away to influence Dorian, and this high would be the only thing that was steering it, and the high is retreating because it's being eroded by a trough out to the west. So this trough comes in, it breaks down the high pressure, and then leaves Dorian in this really light steering flow. And that is why we forecast the storm to slow down significantly as it approaches the Bahamas. This is going into late tomorrow morning to early tomorrow afternoon. And the micromanage of this is really important. If this nose of the high pressure is stronger for just a few hours longer, say to 2, 3 in the morning, then Dorian is a little bit further south of here, which then changes the trajectory of that northerly turn. If Dorian is further north, then it gets to turn north sooner, which puts us more of an easterly track and gets the storm further away from Florida. So you see that this micromanage is incredibly important, and with light steering flow, it is very hard to determine. We're trying to do that by dropping the dropsondes around the storm, and then we're trying to let our computer models get a better handle. The GFS 818Z saw this, and it crept it back to the west. So this was the 18Z GFS, was closest to northern Florida as an example here. And then I'll go back to the 12Z run. So this was the afternoons or late mornings run that doesn't have that new information. And this version of the GFS has a storm a bit further offshore. It's not super far, but it's about a 20-mile difference, which doesn't sound like a lot. But look at this. This is a current forecast. This was the GFS, same model. These are different maps. They're showing precipitation, and then they're going to show wind. So we'll do rainfall first. 12Z GFS. This is the one that's further east, 20 miles further east. It forecasted along the northern Florida coast about 2 to 3 inches of rain at most. Okay, not that bad. The afternoon run, the evening run that saw the hurricane hunter information and ran anew, shifted it 20 miles to the west, and now we're talking about 7 to 8 inches of rain along the coast. You see how this slight micromanage could be a big difference when it comes to forecast output, and that's why I have tried to stay away from putting direct area-based forecast out yet, like saying, oh, this area is going to get this exact winds or this exact rain, because this little tiny shift is just so hard to nail down and is very important. We'll show it again with the winds, okay? Once again, afternoon GFS, further offshore, 20 miles to the east, life's good. You get a tropical storm with some mid-grade tropical storm gusts, 20, 30, gusting upwards of 50. Not too bad. Pretty easy day, and that's probably immediately at the coast. Inland, you don't even get a tropical storm hardly. It's just showing maximum wind gusts. Same model, 20 miles closer to the shore, and now we're talking about gusts as high as hurricane force at the immediate coastline, with a very high mid to high grade tropical storm well inland, all the way into multiple inland counties. So that micromanaging in is very important, guys. So that's about what I got for you here this evening as far as any major other updates go. We're just kind of watching for the latest on Dorian. The biggest thing we're going to watch right now is the Hurricane Hunter Pass. We'll also get some more models seeing the new information. They'll see if we can micromanage this adjustment a little bit more, but it's going to be, as we see it approach the Bahamas, we're going to have a really good idea of whereabout it is, and that will kind of tighten up our guidance some more. So we'll be able to start putting out some good area-based forecasts for Florida tomorrow. But for the evening, guys, if you're in this cone, you should be preparing for a hurricane. That's what I said last time, and I'll say it again. Even up in the Carolinas and Georgia, the threat is still very real that you will see significant impacts in this along the coast. I don't think the inland counties have as much to worry about, especially like western North Carolina, interior South Carolina, like Atlanta. You're probably going to be okay in this one, some rain and some gusty winds, whatever. But Dorian will weaken from a major hurricane, category 4 or 5 here, category 4 to 3 here, and then becoming a category 2 by Wednesday afternoon as it makes this turn. This is a combination of dry air, some wind shear, and the fact that just when they turn north like this, they just don't sustain themselves well. So you will see Dorian begin to wind down, but it's not going to be just a snap of the fingers. It's going to be a long, slow process as the energy winds out of the storm, and it could still be a significant category 1 or 2 hurricane coming up the Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina coast. And like I said, those tropical storm watches and warnings will go up for most of Florida tomorrow, and you guys could be next later this week, all the way up to the Outer Banks. So all the way up to like Duck, North Carolina, wherever they do that. And I haven't even begun to think about the Northeast, if this is going to like go back at all or anything. That's down the road. We'll get to it. So anyway, guys, that's what I got for you this evening. As always, thanks for watching. Stay prepared, stay vigilant. I know it's mind racking and just it just grates on you. You want it to just get over and get it out of the way, but it just takes time. So keep focused and keep preparing. Thanks for watching and have a good one.